Hi, my name is Gerhard Schwartner, and welcome to our LinkedIn Live broadcast with John Stopper, who is the founder and CEO of North Star 8. Welcome, John.
Hello, Gerhard. Good to be with you again.
I love your name. North Star is something that the sailors in the Middle Ages have navigated by for centuries. And you are providing guidance to sales organizations to help them find the ultimate, which is efficiency and effectiveness in their organizations. Tell us a little bit about your keynote speech that you're going to deliver at our Sales 3.0 conference when we have our Revenue and Sales Enablement Summit on December 3rd and 4th.
Yes, well, thank you for liking the name. I selected it because the processes and software that I build is all about navigation and helping companies and sales professionals navigate with their buyers through the buying process, as opposed to fixed playbooks, if you will. For your conference, I'm going to talk about a topic that's really interesting, I think, and needs to be addressed. And as we start to proliferate sales agents into the marketplace, the question is, who owns the agent? Does the company provide them to the salespeople, or do the salespeople bring their own agents?
And so what you're saying is that the salesperson is like an IP by training the agent on them, correct?
Correct. Who owns the IP?
Yep.
Right.
Very good question. I've never thought about it.
So think of this. If a company buys agents and provides them to the sales team,
right?
What kind of guardrails do they put?
Yep.
Are they very tight, stay within this process, which it gives them control, but they stifle innovation? If they open them up and allow the salespeople to innovate and train the agent, well, when the salesperson leaves that company, the company owns that IP, and the salesperson leaves and has to go and train new agents all over again. Now, to attract high-performing sales professionals, they'll probably have, or they should have, their own agents. And if they bring those to the company, how do you govern the IP? How do you train the agents that the company owns? And then again, if somebody leaves, what do they get to take with them? So we talk about the jobs that AI will create. Think about this job. Sales enablement is really going to be about agent management. What agents do we buy? How tight are the guardrails? Do we allow innovation, creativity? How do we train people on the agents? If the people leave, what do they get to take? Right? So it brings up a whole issue around IP, HR issues. And the other thing that should be addressed is I'm a proponent of individual salespeople building their own agents, and they take them through their career because you're training them. They learn your style, your methodology, your process. So if I'm interviewing salespeople, guess what I'm also going to interview? Their agent.
Of course, yeah.
It's going to tell you really everything about their thinking, their history, their process. So companies have to start thinking about agent management and address a lot of these issues here. So that's a topic that I want to bring up. I don't have the answers to it. I have some ideas how to manage that, but I think it's an issue that we have to get addressed, right?
Well, I think that you mentioned HR earlier. They need to get involved because some companies have employees sign whatever they create while they're employed that the company will own. And it is really an ethical question, because I sympathize with your perspective, which is I'm in a publishing business, and I know that my 4 decades of work with Selling Power, the intellectual property that we published that people paid for is also online, is disseminated by Google, and ChatGPT acquired all this content in a wholesale intellectual property robbery that nobody mentions. We don't get any royalty from that, but ChatGPT benefits from it.
Yeah. Yeah, and think of this. If you're a high-performing sales professional, you're going to have developed your own unique processes. There's your own style. And I can't imagine any sales professional going forward not having their own agent. I
Right.
mean, the power it gives you. I mean, it can sort through all your past deals and siphon out what worked, what didn't work, and apply it to new opportunities. So if you're going to attract high-performing sales pros, you're going to have to accept their agents and acknowledge the independence, the IP independence of their unique IP, if you will.
So you almost predict the power struggle in the future.
Yeah, unless there's some clear policies and procedures put in place, which don't exist today in any company that I know of, but we have to start thinking about this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, what I also like the audience to know your perception of the evolution of AI and how it progresses at a pace that is really unprecedented. And I think people need to prepare for the future today.
Yeah, an interesting thing just happened over the past couple of weeks. So OpenAI, remember I think in the past, you and I had a conversation about the pace of growth, how
Yep.
it's gone from being the equivalent of a high school student to a PhD to 100 PhDs. Well, OpenAI just announced they're having trouble hitting those exponential growth numbers. And they measure it in orders of magnitude, or OOMs. And they were projecting going from 4, which we're at now, to 5 would be a 10x order of magnitude increase. They're having trouble hitting that. And the way they were doing it was just with a hammer, data and processing power. So they had to pivot. And what you can see now is they're building their next releases. They're going to pivot from GPT to what's called Orion. And they're building reasoning into the product now. So what you'll see in the new GPTs or Orion is it thinks. And it takes 20 seconds. I have the beta version. So when you put in a query or a prompt, it takes 10, 12, 15 seconds. And they found that it increases the effectiveness and the power. So it comes back to now what and I'll just use for sales professionals, there's going to be reasoning capability. And I think that gets to your question. I always hear you ask, how do you bring and maximize humanity and humanness into the process? And I think that opens up a whole opportunity here to bring in the human side of the sales process.
So that brings up another question. I heard somebody say that the AI resistors, they're going to be wiped out. There are people that tap into the challenging part of AI, which is the guardrails that you mentioned, and the ethical concerns and the fair use of AI in the organization. What do you say to the AI resistors?
If they haven't, they're resistant because they probably haven't worked with it.
Okay.
When you work with a Chat GPT or any of the others that are available out there, its power and its ability to magnify your effectiveness is every day I'm amazed, and it gives you so much scale and power. Instead of, from a sales perspective, working on one or a handful of deals at a time, all of a sudden I can work on 10, 15 just
Yeah.
as effectively, right? It helps me pivot from deal to deal and quickly orientate, which means my productive capacity has just grown exponential. The benefit to my company means I don't need as many salespeople. I could have John Stopper cover a larger territory effectively instead of hiring 5 people to manage the same territory.
And
So,
you can also have on the other side, sales managers have more salespeople under their command because they're able to coach, supervise, and guide more salespeople. So the span of control that's now between 8 to 15 maybe could stretch to 20 and 25.
exactly. And companies just benefit from the scale. So I think the AI skeptics will go away. But you can see the jobs that are going to be created. Did you see that Salesforce announced they're hiring 1,000 people to sell their Agentforce product?
Yeah.
Right? So jobs aren't going away. In fact, I think there'll be new jobs created for sales enablement professionals. I think this whole concept of agent management is going to be
Right. But there's something else that needs to be talked about is that the lifespan of any job is going to be shorter if you do not change.
Oh yeah, we're seeing that now, right? What's the average tenure of a salesperson?
What is it?
It's under 16 months.
Yeah, and the sales managers is 14 months, and VP is probably 12 months, and CMOs is less than 10 months now.
Which, the other issue is you might get to these, the whole concept of the interim CRO, right? So maybe instead of hiring full-time salespeople, you hire independent professionals. They bring their own agents. And, maybe you don't have the burden of hiring full-time people, especially for startups, young companies.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of outsourcing going on. There are fractional CMOs, there are fractional CROs, there are outsourced sales forces. It's really fascinating how technology allows organizations to create systems of efficiency that accelerate sales and drive cost down.
Yeah. Here's a concept I'd love to get your thoughts on. So as I'm building my Compass Agent, which is a sales strategy tool that helps companies navigate through sales processes, I'm looking at a modular approach where the salesperson would bring their own agent. We would validate that it meets security standards, ethical standards, all of that. And then it would snap in to the company's agents, which would have all of their processes. So you would isolate the salesperson's IP
Right.
from the company's IP. They would interface, but if there's a separation, it would be clean.
Yep.
So I think there's a way to, I don't know, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think that you just talked about the beta version of ChatGPT, that there are probably different buckets of information that we already dive in right now. And so if you are an independent or working independently, your IP is protected and you work within your system, then you can then query the other system. Like I use 4 different ChatGPT tools to process information and ask the same question, and I get different answers. And then I try to refine them and make sure that there are no hallucinations involved before I publish something.
Right. Yeah, there's still the requirement for strong human intervention. You just can't
Right.
sit back
Right.
and let
Yeah,
this.
and it's the same dynamic, the individual performance, and there's the team performance, and for teams, salespeople use Slack as an example. But for customer management, they use their CM system. So that it becomes confusing because um, 20 years ago, there was only CRM and there were no applications. And now there are 10,000 different sales applications, software applications, tools out there. So I think we need to rethink, um, especially with AI. AI is not another tool. AI is part of a strategic initiative. And our conversation really brings up the elephant in the room. What is your AI strategy? And if you don't have one, you're just bolting on another tool on top of many tech tools that are not used to 100% by the sales force. And
Yeah.
there are so many companies that have subscriptions to tech tools that are used less than 15% of the time, and companies pour away millions of dollars on
Yep.
tools that they don't use.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think you're going to see usage-based licensing start to take over. Now, when you use AI, what you have to remember is AI is expensive. And the more you use it, the more you're going to get charged. So you have to only apply the reasoning capability in very selective situations.
Yeah.
You just can't blanket it because it'll cost too much.
So
Hey, I wanted to.
that brings us to another dimension of that conundrum, which is how do companies measure the ROI on their AI investment?
As always, it comes down to revenue. And look, all this conversation really comes down to how do we adapt as sales professionals to the changing buyer-seller dynamic? We've lived the last 30, 40 years in what I call the age of scarcity. The reason customers met with salespeople is because they didn't know, what's your product do? Can I get a demo? Can you give me a presentation? How do I use it? Well, they're going to have agents now that'll go out and search and give them all that stuff. So now we're living in an age of abundance where buyers have an abundance of insight about your product and service.
Yeah.
What's the salesperson's role?
Right.
It's all about working with the buyer on innovative strategies for implementing and maximizing ROI.
And there's another dimension, which is you said there's an abundance of data, an abundance of information, and on the other side is poverty of attention. I don't know how many times you encounter this during the day where you talk to people, you're on a Zoom call, and people are just not there. They're not 100% engaged because they're still processing the previous conversation.
Yeah, they're just zipping right through. I just did an essay I just posted on Substack the other day called Deep Sales. And the future of sales is the ability to do deep work. And it's going beyond shallow sales, which I even use that word, it's attention deficit sales, where the way you give value is you go deep with your buyer, your customer, to figure out how to maximize ROI on their investment in your company. And deep work is the future.
Yeah. Well, it brings to mind is that there's a difference between a transactional sale and a relationship building sale where you establish a bond of mutual respect with the customer.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to give a shout out to a colleague of ours, Stephanie Boyer, Dr.
Oh,
Stephanie
yeah.
Boyer.
She's a professor of marketing at Bryant University, and they have sales competitions, and they also they prepare students for the profession of selling, and they have a 2-year degree, which is phenomenal.
Phenomenal. She just ran the Northeast Sales Collegiate Championship. There was over 50 universities there, over 200 students competing. I was both a judge and a coach, so I got to see these students in action. It's phenomenal how well they are trained. So each student had to walk into a room and there was a buyer behind the desk, and sitting in chairs to the side were 5 judges. And they had to perform, they had 10 minutes to close a deal, and they had to hit 8 different parts of the sales process. I don't know if I could go in there and not be nervous with 5 people staring at me. Wow. And they performed wonderfully. I helped her coach the Bryant team. They finished 8th out of 50 universities. And 3 of them, 2 made it to the quarterfinals and 1 to the semifinals.
Wow.
So that was, so these people are coming out of school, and the way they trained is we trained using AI for the competition.
Yeah, that's really astonishing and encouraging. And it's also an opportunity for sales leaders to reach out to those sales universities and engage with those students because they have a tremendous advantage. They know how to sell, they have mastered the selling skills. There are sales professionals that you can train on your product and onboard a lot faster because you have not, you don't have to correct their professional deficiencies where they learned from bad managers or from bad trainers.
Yeah. The use case that they developed that all the students had to use to sell to was as sophisticated a case that you will see in the real world. It was, so their preparation was astounding. It was really exciting to see, Gerhard. I think there's some high quality people coming to the market that will be available for companies.
Also, Stephanie Boyer will be the MC on day 1 on December 3rd at our Sales 3.0 conference.
Oh, great.
The Sales Enablement and Training Summit. And you will be speaking. We have a lot of other exciting speakers. So
yeah.
I want to publish a link below once this we're done, and share the link so you can sign up and engage in the conversation, because the world has become too complex to be understood by one person. So we need to create groups and collectives and share best practices so we can help each other win.
Yeah, I'm excited to participate. And I think the issue around agent IP and agent management and how salespeople should train their agents to help their career is, I'd love to have a dialogue with other people. No one has this figured out yet. So
thank you so much, John. And give people your website again where they can visit Northstar 8. Is it northstar8.com?
Yeah, northstar8.com.
The number 8. It's
the
not...
number 8. That's
okay.
right. Yeah, the number 8 is a symbol. It's the symbol of luck in China, in Mandarin.
And also put sidewise, it's infinity.
That's correct. To infinity and beyond.
Exactly.
Gerhard, it was great being with you again.
And it also suggests that when you use Northstar 8, your possibilities and potential will be infinite.
Well said. I like that.